Hi, my name is Gema Hassen Bey, and I want to share with you the joy of my life. One of the things you ask me is, where does your last name come from? Well, my last name comes from the time of Alexander the Great. He was a conqueror, but also a defender of diversity, mixing with the cultures of the conquered land. He also conquered the Ottoman Empire, and to lead it he appointed to the base the ambassadors of the new empire and lifestyle based on the fusion of cultures and diversity. And from one of those bases comes my last name. The second surname is González, a very Spanish surname. It could have been the other way around, so I didn't have to spell it out all the time in my country. So my genes had already traveled a lot before I was born. My grandfather came to Spain after the Second World War, and he fell in love with a Spanish woman, my grandmother, and they founded our great family. I was born in a typical Spanish family. My parents, Cesar and Marina, had 4 children, and we live in happy time. My parents like to travel, and we travel a lot by car to visit places outside of Madrid, the city where we live. One morning, my father said, "Hey, today we are going to visit a new place. Let's go to Segovia." And I started crying uncontrollably. Lucky we have mothers. They always manage our moments of crisis. She gave me a hug and I stopped crying, and we started on our way. Traveling with my parents was a lot of fun. They thought that it is important to enjoy the road. So we always play, sing, and enjoy the trip together. Until at one point, and during the trip, I got very sleepy and fell asleep. Then it happened. The car overturned several times. When I opened my eyes, my father took me in his arms and said, "Calm down, my daughter, we are going to the hospital." A car stopped to help us and take us to the hospital. Sitting in the car, I feel a lot of pain in my legs. I told my mother, "Mommy, my legs is a lot." At the hospital, they put me on my feet and I fainted. My injury was caused by poor attendance after the accident. It is very important not to touch the injury if it is not necessary, and to call the emergency service immediately. These first moments after the accidents are very important. My spine was like a twig. It had been damaged but not broken. It broke when he called me, set me down, and stopped up. And since then I can walk. That changed the destiny in my life. I know everyone wanted to help, but just as important as helping is knowing how to do it. This is something that happens to a lot of people with disabilities. Once I commented on this with a blind Paralympic friend, and she said to me, "It's true, Gemma, you're right." Once I was crossing a street, and when I got to the other side, a very kind man told me, "Come on, dogger, I will help you across." And I told her, "No, don't worry, I don't need it." And he insisted, and I crossed the street again. Then another came to help her across, and by the end she didn't know which side of the street she was on. This helping is very important to know how to help well, because many times there are great institutions to want to help us but do not listen to us, and the things never really change. We must remove the paternalism and understand that people with disabilities can also help us and help other people with our experience and values to improve their lives. An accident car changed my life. When I woke up, I was attached to a machine that drew the most essential of life, which is the heartbeat. And the chart was not a standing line. The lines go up and down, like mountains. And my life will be the same. If it goes up and down, everything will be fine. The bad thing is that it was a continuous line, where nothing happened. There is no life. So I grew up with my new life. And I understood that I was diversity. Because I was a woman, I was in a wheelchair, my last name, my sexual orientation, and everything you imagine I already have. But it's positive, saying the sum of all that diversity is what I am. They always told me you can't, My brother's cool, my friends cool, my family cool, but I couldn't. My parents tried to take me to my sister's school, but there were so many stairs that it was impossible. And also the teachers did not know what to do with a girl like me with special needs. So my parents hired a teacher to give me private lessons at home, and so I studied high school. But I started to feel like a caged bird. Oh yes, the cage was made up of gold, and I had it all, but I was not happy. One day I set out to show my parents that I could, and I decided to run away and buy bread. Then I got the money off the kitchen table without telling anyone. I opened the door and go down to the street. You imagine that traveling through the street in a wheelchair is a great adventure. And when I got the bakery, the counter was very high and people were ignoring me. I yelled, "I want to buy the bread!" Then everyone looked at me and the baker gave me the bread. I returned home very happy to have achieved my purpose. When my father opened the door for me, I said very happily, "Hi Dad, today I bought the bread." My father looked at me very seriously and said, "Gema, don't do it anymore." We were very worried. We didn't know where you were. You could have hurt yourself. This never again. I replied, "Look Dad, I know that life has risks, but I want to live it. So get the idea that like today I have gone for bread, tomorrow I will earn it." Spanish law says, all Spaniards are equal before the law, without any discrimination of the grounds of birth, race, sex, or religion, opinion, or any other personal or social condition or circumstance. It looks great, but this does not actually happen. And many of us who are considered different, we have to arm ourselves with courage and overcome all physical and mental barriers that we find to do the most everyday things. For example, I don't understand how technologically we can go to the moon, Mars, and space, and it is still difficult for us to go buy bread. How we organize our resources, our money, and our priorities. We should focus not only on the big things, but also on the small things that are the most important in our life. For the experience in the school, my father thought that I could not study. But I was already unstoppable, and when I finished high school, I enrolled in a university degree in journalism. My university is the one with the most stairs in all of Madrid. It has stairs outside and inside. My friends and my teacher always helped me up the stairs. And one day when I finished my studies, I was surprised. There was an elevator, a disabled parking lot. The director of the university told me, "We appreciate your effort and perseverance, and we have adapted the university for more people with disability like you." I left very happy to finish my studies and to have contributed to improve the accessibility of future students with wheelchairs at my university. I understood that if you don't give up, people help you. So I write one of my first songs with a life motto for me: "If you move, the world moves with you." My next dream was to trade bread for a sword to fight for my next challenge. I started practicing fencing, and with only months of preparation before the games, and to everyone's surprise, I achieved the first fencing medal in some games in my country, Spain. I started to lose, but the audience helped me when I got this message: "Don't worry, you have to enjoy what you do." I have a successful life in sports. I have won many medals. I have participated in 5 Paralympic Games. I have received awards and recognitions, and I live many happy moments. My soul always tells me, "You are a warrior of life. Fight for everything you want. It doesn't matter if it's hard. If you don't give up, you will win." The Beijing Games were very difficult for me. I suffered from homophobia because of my sexual orientation when my team realized that I was in a relationship with my rival. I remember that life is sometimes good and sometimes low, and that everything is part of the game. So I stopped to think about why he did sports. Was it for the medals? The answer was no. Honestly, I did not play sport for the medals, but for the spirit of improvement, for overcoming effort, fair play, and the values that the Olympic flame symbolizes. I've been lucky enough to carry in the torch during the Athens Games as it passes through my city, Madrid. Maybe it wasn't your typical athlete. Perhaps the most important thing for me was not to be the best in the world, but for what kind of world I wanted to be the best. I decided to stop competing and look at the world, and I saw that values were behind loss in our society. We have a very competitive society where the most important thing was to have money and power, and it doesn't matter to hurt others if you win. I wanted to start my professional career as a journalist to combine how the values of sport and diversity can help us improve our world. I wrote television programs and worked as a journalist for the main Spanish television network with my program The World's Move With You, and the first new guest during the Paralympic Games in London. Spain, together with Channel 4 in the United Kingdom, became the first countries in the world to carry out a Paralympic informational program with the same treatment as Olympic athletes. Then I had a problem and went back to the hospital. Again, the line life up and down. But I know that when the body doesn't move, the mind flies. And in the hospital bed, my mind flew to our new project on a top of Kilimanjaro. A sustainable project in which the important thing is not that I win. The important thing is that with the force and the values of the sport, we all win. If I insisted on climbing mountains in a wheelchair and managed to leave a legacy of technology and design a shirt that facilitates access to the mountain for people with reduced mobility and change the life of many people, this change is important to me. If with the project we sensitize everyone that more important than competing with each other is collaborating as a team to take care of ourselves and our planet, this challenge is important to me. And if I manage to reach the top by overcoming all obstacles, then there are no excuses. All of you can reach your peaks. I have become the first person in a wheelchair to climb the highest peak in Spain with my own effort, the peak of Teide, and I'm still preparing to reach the top of Kilimanjaro. This is how diversity creates the city of everyone and for everyone, so that there is no disability, there are different skills. And when we come together in a common project is when we do something great and improve the world. This is all I wanted to share with you for the moment because the story continues. Don't forget that everything is possible. We can reach all our peaks, and if you move, the world moves with you. Thanks so much for your attention. I wait for you on my website and on my social networks.